The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. A chilly Monday here in Dallas, Texas. Sorry for the quality. I am on a hotel phone, and it's a cordless to boot. Not the best sound quality, but on the bright side, we have Cousin Sal on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline for the last time of the 2010/11 NFL season. What's happening?
Probably /12/13. If these owners
I know.
put their crap together. It's all over, Billy.
It's not good. It's not good. People seem to be a little pessimistic that we're going to have football anytime soon.
Yeah.
So listen,
in a way, it's good. I don't know. I mean, how much money can we lose on all these games?
That's when I'm looking at silver linings. I'm looking at of just more money in my bank account. So
Right.
That's a bonus.
Yeah.
Maybe college football. Maybe we pick a college football team to follow.
Yeah.
Actually, this could be dangerous because we might lose money on college football.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure we will. I know this is God's way of telling us to stop gambling, but we won't. We're not going to learn.
Yeah. Well, there were many ironies to Super Bowl 45.
45. Yep.
45. The greatest one, which was that me and you made, or you and I should say, we made a 12-1 Pittsburgh bet in September when Charlie Batch was the QB. That was a brilliant bet, and somehow cost us like almost as much money as we would have won for the variety of ways we screwed it up. The killer of it was that I think both of us thought Green Bay was going to win and that the game was going to go over, and somehow we didn't have that bet.
And what sucks is, like, take a little last three games. Like, the three favorites win and cover to end the year. And all we do is make teasers all year. And how do we lose a ton of money in these last 2 weeks of football when the three favorites won and covered? It's ridiculous. And I feel like, I like to say, like, the best defense wins in January, but it's kind of the best quarterback now, right? The best quarterback won the last three games, and I don't know. I feel like lame analyzing it that way because it seems like any eighth grader could say, "Oh, this one's got the better quarterback," and you sound smarter if you talk about which linemen are match up better against different blitz packages. But is it just the better quarterback wins now for the most part? Is that how it's going to be?
I mean, they certainly had one of the worst running games. Which is funny, we talked last night, we had our annual, I can't believe we lost our Super Bowl bet conversation on Sunday night, which has become an American tradition.
Good.
So Green Bay had to protect that lead with about 7 minutes left. It was 28-25. And they didn't even pretend they were going to run the ball.
No.
They did it by, they protected the lead by throwing, which I'm not sure if the quarterbacks are better or if the rules have just shifted so much against the defense now that's how you move the ball. But, I thought McCarthy coached a really good game yesterday.
He did.
So,
he did.
He
and
really,
it was odd. It was odd that, you're right, like Green Bay to win the game, to run out the clock was passing, and the Steelers down double digits. And now we've seen this like 3 weeks in a row of football.
Right.
Down double digits, running, taking their time, bringing the play clock down to under 5, and when you have a field goal kicker who missed so wide, but he actually almost hit the scoreboard with his missed field goal. I don't even know if there was a prop for that, and the extra point almost didn't make it. You need 2 touchdowns, and you're taking the play clock down to 4 and handing off to Noel Day Moore or whatever. I don't get it. I don't get what happens to these coaches with what goes on.
Yeah, see, I went to the game, so I don't know if the announcers were killing him for it, but to the 52-yard field goal, I mean, there were a lot of ways Pittsburgh lost that game, and I think if you're a Steelers fan, you won your 2 titles, so you're not going to be licking your wounds for the next 5 years about this game, but, man, if you watch that tape, there were a lot of different ways that game got away, and one of them was the 52-yard field goal. Like, this is a guy that's been waived by at least 2 other teams, and they bring him out to try this, and the Steeler fan behind me goes, he was making them from 61 pregame.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, but here's the kicker. It's Sean Sweesom. There's no way he's going to make this with 80 million people watching. There's 0% chance.
No, I agree. I said the same thing, and he was not even close. And it's funny, at all the things that Roethlisberger did wrong, that might have been the biggest thing he did wrong. Is he was about to get sacked, which would have made it like a 58-yard field goal, and they would have punted. But he's big and lumbering, and he fell forward to a point where it was going to be a 50. He was still sacked. I think it counts as a sack, but still brings it to a 52-yard field goal, and they march the kicker who's been cut by everyone out.
Well, I'll tell you, when Woodson and Shields went down for the Packers, and the Steelers scored their first drive, second half, then they had the ball. It was 21-17. It's about midway through third quarter. They had all the momentum. The energy was really in the stands because there were twice as many Steeler fans as Packer fans there.
Yeah.
They're going down the field, nice methodical drive, mixing the run and the pass. They're at around the 40, and you could just see it. I mean, it's really fun to go to the games. I hate the TV timeouts, but the part that's great is just seeing how everybody's lined up. And there's certain plays when you're at the game and you go, ooh, look at that. Look at that receiver on the right. That guy's got the whole field if they throw to him.
Yeah.
And they set that whole drive up for that Wallace play when he ran across the middle and Roethlisberger overthrew it. And that was it. I mean, if he completes that pass, I think they win the game.
He does. And there are a lot of what-ifs. Like if James Jones catches that ball, maybe the fourth quarter doesn't matter. Maybe not. But
Yeah, but I said this to you last night. He's dropped that pass all year.
Right. No.
Like, he's just not good. Like, that comes with the territory with James Jones. Roethlisberger usually hits that pass, especially like he had so much time. He had time to bend his knees and really like think about it. And
that wasn't the only one. He missed Heath Miller. He overthrew Wallace on a third down play. It might be time to reevaluate Ben Roethlisberger. Maybe we'll do the say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger, but maybe he's not as good as everyone thinks he is. Right? I mean, come on, this guy. Santonio Holmes saved him with maybe the greatest Super Bowl catch of all time. Couple phantom Seattle holding calls, and he's a three-time loser in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's true. And, Heath Miller, his stats weren't good yesterday, but he was open a lot in that game. Like, when you were there, both of the tight ends, I forget the name of the backup tight end, but those guys were open, and he wasn't really looking for him. I thought the penalty and the kickoff in the last drive really put them behind the eight ball, but whatever happened to the out pass when you're running a 2-minute drill? Why doesn't that pass happen anymore?
They were running some weird versions of that. Oh, but they're just like a 6-yard out. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you don't see.
No, what happened to why are people throwing over the middle now when they have 2 minutes to move?
Exactly. You're trying to stop the clock. He did some weird things. He would like double pump a screen pass, like giving guys chances. I think his receivers, for the most part, helped him out. But
the first interception wasn't his fault because he got hit.
Right.
The fumble, the other play that obviously killed him was the Mendenhall fumble, but I still feel like the Wallace overthrow is a bigger murder for them because just where they were in the field and where the momentum was and that whole drive was set up for him to complete that. And if I'm a Steeler fan, that's the play I'm thinking about.
Yep.
But still, I feel like, the Packers, you just got to hand it to them. Like, they lose those two D-backs, and they just kept chugging along. It reminded me of the 03-04 Pats. Like, whatever gets thrown at that team, they just keep fighting back.
Rodgers, and, he had guys dropping, too. He had guys, I think he threw like 3 or 4 questionable, bad pass. Everything else was a beautiful dart right on, and he was yesterday. He really was.
Yeah, I really felt like if they played that game 10 times, simulated by the way I watched yesterday, I feel like the Packers would have scored 50-plus in like 2 of those 10. Like,
probably. Those
guys were open, and I don't know if that came across on TV, but those guys were open the whole game. And, and especially in the first half watching it, you're thinking, is Pittsburgh, like, in the wrong defense? Like, what's going on here? Like, Jordy Nelson was open on every play.
He had 9 catches and could have had, 12 or 13? Didn't he have 9 catches?
It was like their third and fourth D-backs had called in sick.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And, Rodgers had good stats anyway, but when you factor in the 4 drops, and then that last drive, it was just they did whatever they wanted. I know Polamalu is taking a beating today, but it was kind of partly how they were playing him. He was like 25 yards off the line. What's he supposed to stop when he's 25 yards away from the ball?
Talk about bad matchups. The Packers are just a bad matchup for him because his thing is all guessing game anyway, and they throw so much at you in the spread offense. I know we've heard it all before, and I thought it would be like that. I thought the Packers would score, but I thought the Steelers would score too, and they're they had the magic, but they didn't.
It was a very, as looking back, very predictable playoffs.
Yeah.
Like the only real shocker was that Saints game.
Well, that's what kills me. It was predictable. We didn't make $1 off of $1. We got slaughtered. We had Green Bay to win the division. We had Rodgers to win the MVP, and we end up rooting for the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we decided hedging is a bad idea when you have to lay money and points with the hedge. So we just decided to ride the Pittsburgh bet, which was the right move. And
we had it all. We talked for a half hour Sunday morning about, let's just do Rodgers MVP. We had all these hedges that would have worked.
Yeah.
Gotten us out of it. But.
Yeah. Well, I thought the best bet going into that game was Green Bay teased with the over.
The over.
Because there was going to be 40 points in that game. And I don't think, especially indoors, and just doesn't seem like there's any way those teams could play 20 times and not score 50 points in each of the games. But
3 in the over, we wouldn't have had to sweat out that last drive even with the Steelers because they would have only won by 1 at best, right?
You were at a big Super Bowl party yesterday. Give me some highlights.
Yeah, Jimmy had people over. He had celebrity chef Chris Bianco make a pork butt, they called it. It was full pork and everything, and it was good. It's good. A lot of ABC contingent on hand, Modern Family guests, Lost guests, and that was it. I don't know what else.
So weren't any arguments, or who's made the most annoying comment? Was there a commercial that hit big? Nothing?
I can't even think. I got to say, I was so withdrawn from the party. I have 1,000 props going on. I'm like walking around watching a TV that no one else knows exists. So I only found out about who was there and what went on after the game. But
yeah, I've seen you in action at a Super Bowl, and it's really you're just kind of walking in a circle, just staring at your phone.
It's not good. I got 1,000 things written on 2 sheets of paper, like a beautiful mind, and people making fun of me. And I don't know. I've apologized. I think I lost every prop I gave out on the podcast last week.
Yes, you did, including got a lot of emails and tweets about the John Kuhn more than 6 yards. It's unclear if he suited up.
I don't know if he did suit up. There was a white guy in the backfield at one point, but it might have been the referee. But then again, I know they're supposed to start back a few yards. But I know, I felt like I paid for this huge prop wedding, and John Kuhn left me at the altar. The bastard doesn't even show up.
I think maybe we should trademark this as Cousin Sal's annual guaranteed loser prop.
Loser lock? Yeah.
You don't even just lose these. These are like they lose dramatically.
Yeah,
the Gary Russell first touchdown. John Kuhn, I don't think he carried the ball once.
Yep.
These are specialists.
I know. I'm bad at it. But how about these odds makers? They you saw the Aguilera thing? 154 was the over under. You saw the unofficial time.
Now did she? It was 152, right?
It was 154.
Oh, it was a push?
Yeah, it was a push.
Wow. And she forgot a lyric. That's controversial.
Forgot a lyric. It maybe should add time on if you forget a lyric. Like at the biathlon, when you screw up, they add time, right? She can't get it easy. She
let that Brave go for so long that it was pretty clear that her boyfriend had money on the over.
Yeah. My cousin Jimmy bet the under on the Brave, and at like 10 or 11 seconds, like, no, wait, is it? I was like, you lost, man. It's not even close.
She's still going, and you already lost.
Yeah. And they cut to the fighter jets. The funny thing is, it was hard to time how long it was, because at like 1:40, they cut to the fighter jets for about 20 seconds, and then they cut back to her, and she's like bowing, so you didn't know how long it was. But
obviously the location took some heat this week because of the weather.
Yeah.
And I've been clear many times about how I feel like there should be rotation, but I got to say, the stadium's incredible, and we might have to figure out. I might have to reconfigure my rotation. Whatever. We dealt with some snow. It was cold. Who cares? Like that stadium is so great, and it just felt like a stadium worthy of that game. And that granted the last 2 minutes didn't come through, but Man, they got to figure out a way to have more things at that stadium.
Yeah, they should.
I'm so happy to be there.
But I mean, you've been there twice this year. We went in December, but I really do like your Vegas idea. I mean, I hate most of your ideas. I have to admit it. But your Vegas, to have a dome there, how great. I mean, you have a bunch of people pumping money into that dome in Vegas, and it's right there, and there's no stripper shortage, and none of this other nonsense. The weather wouldn't be a factor. It would be spectacular.
Well, listen,
Reading Roy halftime.
Multi-billionaire who might be listening to this podcast, just copy the Dallas Stadium.
Yeah.
They did it. They figured out exactly how to do a stadium, and that TV is awesome. Mm-hmm. And the way they did the end zone seats and the suites, and I mean, what they did do was have enough people. Yeah, I don't know if you read about this, but it was like an absolute catastrophe trying to get in.
Oh, was that? Yeah.
Oh my God, it was like 90 minutes. They didn't,
really?
For some reason, they didn't have enough people.
What time did you get there? You got there 2 hours before, or even more?
Oh no, we got there super early, so we were able to get in. But people are waiting. Like they had to shut down a couple of the entrances because the ice had fallen off a few days before, but they didn't have enough people. It was weird. It was like they treated it like it was a normal game or something. So people were pretty. And then they had the temporary seat disaster and all that. But once you got inside, and also the food there, it's just the greatest stadium. It was such a good place for the Super Bowl.
Good. I'm glad you like it because we're going.
Yeah, you know what else? It was kind of fun having the snow. Like I always remember it as the snow Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like Christmas. Maybe there should be a little snow to remind you of the seasons, But I mean, you didn't have a completely positive experience there because you did call me at one point.
Oh, I did.
During the game.
What day was that? I might have been drinking.
It was yesterday, the last day. Yesterday, you called me. It was during the game. I think it was like in the second quarter. Let me see here. This is probably your last message to me because I have to disconnect my phone. I'm losing all these profits. All right, here it is.
Cousin Sal, it's not bad enough we had the AFC -1.5 to win the Super Bowl. Not bad enough we let our Steelers bet ride after hedging with the Jets. Now, I was just caught on Jerry Jones' Jumbotron, French kissing my boyfriend Josh Freeman in the luxury box, and then feeding him grapes. Worse yet, that roly-poly idiot Mike McCarthy threw a challenge flag, and the whole stadium got to see it 4 times. What kind of country is this that have to be subjected to such ridicule? My forefathers fought for my independence and privacy. What so proudly we watched at the Friday Night Lights last Gleeman, something like that. I'm so humiliated, I'm coming clean. Now available on paper book, my book. Now I could die with the tip of Josh Freeman's tongue poking my eardrum. That's a vigorous cosign. Con!
Wow.
I have some news for you.
What is it?
I was in the same room as Josh Freeman.
What? You are?
I couldn't go up to him. I didn't want to have that awkward thing where I'm like, "Hey, I'm Bill Simmons," and then he just looks at me blankly.
Right.
It was like 4-to-1 odds that he'd actually have heard about the BS report stuff. Let me tell you something about.
I'm going to surprise you one day and get him on this podcast with me. I lost track of time, and it was supposed to be today, but we will do this. We will do this.
I did stare at him for a good 10 minutes.
Big man.
He is the biggest football player who is like a skill position player that I've ever seen.
Really? Like
he looks like, I don't know whether he was wearing boots or what was going on, but he looked like a power forward.
Yeah.
He is a gigantic dude.
Yeah.
I thought Roethlisberger was a big dude. This guy's bigger. He looked like he was like 6'7". Like you looked at him and you go, wow, this guy, I want to buy some Josh Freeman stock.
Yeah, stock.
My man Josh Freeman. No, he's huge. I mean, and maybe that's where the game's going. Is you need these big ass dudes who can.
Size matters to me.
I was impressed though. He was pretty good. I'm trying to think what it was weird for celebrity highlights.
Yeah,
because a lot of the flights got canceled this weekend, and people were in Fort Worth, and it wasn't a typical Super Bowl from seeing totally crazy stuff.
Well, they showed Cameron Diaz, and I love her to death, and just feeding the A-Rod something. I don't know what it was, which was as bad as a result as I could see watching that game. That kills me.
That's pretty good.
Scumbag Yankee. But that was
what
about the halftime show.
halftime show in person was awesome. On TV, I don't think it was that great, right?
I think on TV, you're looking to make fun of everything. Especially if you've lost all your bets by the second quarter, you know. You're really looking to make fun, like, oh, that commercial sucked, and what's Usher doing? Go away, you know. But no, I've been there live, and it is better, it seems, for most of them.
Is it just because I'm a wrestling fan? But I thought after the Owen Hart thing, we weren't going to have people come out of the ceiling of gigantic arenas anymore.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not to make light of Owen Hart, but holy crap, I thought that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there's Usher coming out of the Jumbotron. I don't know. That always makes me a little uneasy when they do that. I don't know what the upside is. It's
ironic that you said that Usher performed, and yet you say they were short about 1,000 ushers at the stadium, letting people in.
It was true. The one thing I was really surprised by was the Steeler fan turnout.
Mm.
I mean, I tweeted yesterday.
I think we were at two. I went against the Cowboys. I went against the Seahawks. They do a great job. They do a great job, Travis.
Yeah. It was about, first of all, more fans than I've ever seen for either team, like wearing the jerseys and stuff at a Super Bowl.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably 70% jerseys, which was impressive. There was the one guy. How do you explain the guy who wears the jersey of a team that's not one of the two teams?
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Who's that? The guy wearing the Namath throwback?
Yeah, I don't even like that at a Super Bowl party. And then if you're going to flaunt that at a stadium,
I think it's a good rule if you're going to a Super Bowl and one of your team's not in it, don't wear the team's jersey. Yeah. It's just weird. It makes everybody uncomfortable.
Now, I'm going to put Mad Dog Russo to you. Now, in your estimation, Billy, more cheese heads or terrible towels?
So many more terrible towels.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cheese heads are too bulky to get. Yeah.
Steeler fans, shut up. A couple other interesting notes. Saw 2 Favre jerseys.
Wow.
It's a pretty strong statement.
Yeah, what is that? Is that a Steeler fan then? What are you doing if you're wearing a Favre jersey?
It's either a Packer fan who's too broke to buy another jersey, or somebody just not willing to give up the Favre relationship. But it's weird. It really is like wearing the jersey of your ex-wife to your daughter's wedding or something when you're remarried. Like I feel like with Rodgers, like you got to be all in with Rodgers at this point.
Yeah, like the Egyptian protesters, let's say they get independence and then they start wearing a shirt with a picture of the president on it. I don't understand that.
And then the other weird thing was a lot of Roethlisberger jerseys.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they forgave him, and he's wherever you want to stand on it morally, but it just seems like you might want to get another Steeler.
A lot of women wearing Roethlisberger jerseys.
Did not see a woman wearing a Roethlisberger jersey. No.
All right.
No. This is. I really think the throwback might be the way to go. One other thing, I saw your boy Romo. He's married to the dude from Gossip Girl's sister.
Yeah.
They're running all together. Chase Crawford, Tony Romo, and the fiance. It seemed like a nice tight family. I'm happy for Tony. I think you're in good shape with him.
Good.
Yeah,
I was thinking, and back to I do feel bad for him. I was talking to my buddy Darren at home. Like, Roethlisberger is now 19 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. And we're saying, like, if Romo had that kind of, I'm always looking to defend Romo. If he had those kinds of numbers, there's no way he's close to winning 3 Super Bowls. Let me just say that.
It's true.
Romo.
It's a great point. And I was reading on ESPN.com today, Bill Barnwell and Aaron Schatz had a piece about how they just think the win-loss record for quarterbacks in the playoffs is really stupid, and it's the equivalent of judging pitchers by wins and losses.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it shouldn't be mentioned.
Right. But
at some point we can get carried away. I think that's a pretty good point.
Yeah. I'll go with that.
Yeah. If Roethlisberger was 10-2, but I don't. How many of those games was he the key guy in?
I don't know.
Anyway, so what do we do now?
Nothing.
Are you depressed?
I was thinking about these players, how screwed they are here, because these owners sign. I don't know how they finagled this contract where they get paid even if there's no football next year by the TV contracts. But they have to take matters into their own hands, and they have to get some dirt on these owners, like especially the old ones, like Bob Kraft, Jim Irsay, Ralph Wilson. Set up some Charlie Sheen type situation and get it on camera and just use it as blackmail. That's really the only way these guys are going to give in.
I did a lot of digging on this whole thing this week, trying to figure out like who the power guys were and stuff, and It sounds like the number one guy. Who do you think it is? Who do you think the alpha dog of the owners is with this lockout and just the guy that takes over the meetings?
Out of the owners?
Yeah.
Is it Dan Snyder?
No.
Let me see. Is it Principal Woodman? I don't know.
No, it's not.
Who is it?
There's three owners. Mm-hmm. Jerry Jones, Bob Kraft, and then the alpha dog. Charlotte's Jerry Richardson.
Is that right?
Isn't that weird? Who would have thought Carolina.
Carolina, yeah.
Isn't it weird that Carolina's owner is like the alpha dog?
That is strange. What is he?
Those guys, they just want. They want, the Morris Smith talked about it this weekend, but they basically want the players to give up $1 billion, and the players can't figure out why. Like the ratings have never been higher. They've never made more money.
Yeah.
So why are they giving up more money? I don't want to take sides in it, but you're giving back money and you're asking them to play more games. It just seems like a bunch of rich guys trying to throw the what's around, and it's starting to make me mad, Sal. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I'm mad too, and maybe this is it. Maybe it's us. Maybe it's the fans. I feel like we've done enough, but nothing's gonna get done. If these guys have to deal with it. Maybe we each write a check for however much money. Maybe we just donate. We make up this $100 million they want, and with the stipulation, these guys pay our vig for the next 10 years on any bet we make.
It's just really hard for me to accept the owners talking about how they need more money back when L.A. just got between $700 and $900 million, depending on how many NFL teams they got.
Yeah.
Or if they get one or two, for the naming rights for a stadium that hasn't even been built or approved yet. Like, this is ridiculous.
What do you think about there's a thing floating around, 19-week schedule. See, I know this only talks to half of their issues, the owners, but 19-week schedule, 3 bye weeks.
I just think they could do 18 and 2 bye weeks, and that's the most. Here's what I'm open for the compromise.
Yeah.
So we go 18-week schedule, 2 bye weeks per team, but then for the playoffs they add 2 playoff teams.
Ugh.
So
how do they do that?
Listen though, the number 1 seed in each conference gets a bye. So you have 12 other teams that play that first week. So you get basically 6 playoff games that first weekend.
Oh, I see.
And then they could stagger that however they want. They get more money from that, and then it goes through to the second round.
Oh, I like that. So there'd be 3 games in each conference, 3 playoff games in each conference.
Yeah.
So then after the first,
and it gives you a little more value for getting that 1 seed. You don't get the bye week for.
Let's do that. I don't want you leaving Dallas until that's done. Who disagrees with that?
Well, it's fair. And then the other thing is, that if you cut down to 2 exhibition games, and you get a couple bye weeks and you make a couple safety measures, then we should be in the ballpark. So now it comes down to the owners just being greedy. Like how much money does Bob Kraft need? How much money does Jerry Jones need? Haven't these guys quintupled their investment on these teams?
Yeah, I know. Well, they keep throwing in your face that they took a chance, and this is now they're going to reward themselves because they can.
And then, Roger Goodell, who's on the cover of SI this week for reasons unknown, and it's an 8,000-word profile about what a great guy he is.
Mm-hmm.
Show me any evidence that he can stand up to these owners.
No, there's none.
He seems like a puppet.
And by the way, what does he think is going to happen to these players who he has trouble reprimanding as it is? If they have all this free time to themselves, can you imagine the dog fights and the alleged molestations when these guys have no camp to report to, or no practices, or no anything? I mean, everyone's going to be. We're going to come back to football, and everyone's going to be suspended anyway.
I know, and how come I'm one of the only media members who keeps pointing out what a hypocrite he is for, cracking down on fines and worrying about concussions, and then doing this 18-game thing? It's totally illogical.
I know.
I still haven't heard it explained correctly to me how the 18 games make sense with all the other health stuff that they're going through.
You're not actually the only media member. Keith Olbermann.
Who else?
Oh, no, he's not in the media anymore.
There's got to be. It's weird to me that all we hear about is what a great job Roger Goodell is doing because he handled some of these player conduct things. I don't give a crap about player conduct.
Right.
I don't care that Tank Johnson was going to shoot the guy who stole his mother's car, so Roger Goodell arranged to have a security guard outside his house. Who cares?
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to talk about during the week, but on Sunday it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter when we're watching the games.
No, and I still think that the thing I keep hearing, remember when they moved that Sunday night game to Tuesday when Philly had that snow and they panicked and they canceled?
Mm-hmm.
And they moved they didn't want to go head-to-head against ESPN on Monday night. Everybody thought it was because ESPN wanted exclusive things for that Monday game, so they moved to Tuesday.
Yeah.
There's a feeling that they did that to kind of test out what that Tuesday rating would be.
Yeah.
Well, here's the irony, Sal. They postponed that Philly game for 2 days because of the weather conditions.
Yeah.
Then they have media day on Tuesday, and it's like slip and slide on ice rink highways and all that, and people are getting in accidents.
Yeah, you're right.
They don't care about media day.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Guys are such hypocrites. I've had it. I really might go on a full-fledged attack. So everything's going to go down in the beginning of March because that's when they have to decide when to certify the union and all that stuff. So we're going to know in 4 or 5 weeks whether this is going to be really, really bad or not. And I have a feeling it is.
Well, there'll be a heartbreaking moment this week. I think they have 2 more meetings scheduled. They said the one this weekend went well, but when there's a blow-up in one of those 2 meetings and they say, screw it, we won't talk again until the summer, then, that'll be a hard punch. Well, the other problem is the players' union, which seems like it's run a little more competently now. They had Gene Upshaw before, who's not with us anymore, but I don't know if he did that good of a job. And so the owners are kind of basing their negotiations off, well, this is how it was before. And it's like, well, that guy didn't do a good job. What do you want from us? Yeah, what can you do? So, I don't know. It makes me mad. But we have basketball. We have our Blake Griffin Rookie of the Year bet. We have our Durant scoring title bet. We have the finals coming up. We have hockey. I'm going to be watching closely. We have hockey. We could bet on the Oscars this year. The Bachelor. We're all set. We're good. American Idol. So you actually sound like you're in decent spirits. I thought you were going to be like catatonic. No, I don't like it at all. I don't like it. Okay. Jimmy Kimmel Live. Dr. Phil is actually on tonight. Maybe he can help me get through this. Matthew Perry, Adam Sandler, Justin Bieber later in the week. And that's that, Billy. Listen, you're coming back for March Madness? Oh, yeah. Yeah, that week we'll do some sort of prop thing. Anyway, thanks for 21 straight weeks, I think, for us. Thank you. That's good endurance. We're really this has been big for you. You had the Josh Freeman voicemails, I think, put us on the map with TMZ. That was all you, buddy. That's all you and your drunk calls. There's nothing to do with it. And we had some great gambling advice. A lot of losers were handed out. So thank you for a great 4 months. Thank you, pal. It's fun. All right. Talk to you soon. All right. Take care. All right, and now, for the last time of the 2010/11 football season, our friend from the NFL Network, Mike Lombardi. What's happening?
Not much, Bill. Thought it was a good game. I don't know about you, but it was enjoyable to watch.
It was very exciting. I don't think it was very well played.
No.
Right?
No, I think Pittsburgh, and especially Big Ben Roethlisberger, feels like they left a lot of things on the field. And in Green Bay, same thing. I mean, Jordy Nelson has a lot of catches, but, boy, he had a lot of drops.
I said to Sal, I really feel like Green Bay could have scored 50 in that game.
And when they look at the tape, I'm sure they're going to feel like they could have if they just make easy catches. I mean, there were some of those plays that were there for the taking. The James Jones catch is an easy catch, and that's a touchdown, and they could have really advanced the game even further. But, obviously, for what they were able to accomplish in the short amount of time they actually had the football was really remarkable considering all the drops.
I don't normally like going to football games that much because I hate the TV timeouts. I like seeing the replays. I like hearing the announcers. But in my opinion, the best thing about going is just being able to see the field and the formations and how guys are lined up, and you just pick up stuff. And one of the best things you pick up is how the receivers are being covered, who's getting separation. Like you always talk about separation. Man, it seemed like the Packers receivers could do whatever they wanted in that game.
Yeah, I mean, they could separate, and even losing Driver. I mean, Jordy Nelson, they didn't have it. The Steelers didn't have an answer for covering him. And, James Jones, they didn't have an answer for covering him. And I think that was really the spot where the team, the Steelers were deficient in their secondary, their coverage players, and the Packers are exceptional at receiver. And I think that was the difference in the game. We all knew it. They weren't going to come in and run the ball. I mean, anybody who says they're shocked that the Packers only ran the ball 13 times wasn't paying attention, because the Packers weren't going to run the ball ever. They were going to throw it, and they would have been even more successful throwing it had they had not had all the drops. And
on the flip side, before the two injuries, the Steelers receivers were getting no separation. The only guys who were open were the tight ends, and Roethlisberger wasn't seeing them at all. Then the two guys go out. All of a sudden, the game changes. And then, now tell me if I'm right on this, because you know a lot more about football than I do. It seemed like the Packers were throwing out just a bunch of D-backs out there and kind of basically hoping Pittsburgh would run the ball. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think they wanted it. They wanted Pittsburgh to try to run the ball, to get away from it. And I think Big Ben, when he goes back, and especially the second interception that he has, the first one, Howard Green gets in his face and causes him to not throw the ball very well. But the second interception, really, he's got Heath Miller running down the seam wide open, and he has the other receiver behind. I think it was Hines Ward wide open, and he just made a bad decision. And I think what happened in the game is, because the Packers were moving around so much, it actually forced Ben to be quick-minded, and he really wasn't quick-minded in the game with his decision-making. And then his accuracy early in the third quarter, he's got Mike Wallace wide open for a touchdown. It's an easy throw, a throw he makes all the time to the pylon, and he doesn't make it.
Sal and I talked about that before you came on. I thought that was the biggest play of the game.
I think it was.
That whole drive was set up for that play. And you could see it on the field, the way that the formation they had, and just because of the million hours of video games I've played. And when I go to these games and I see the formations and the defenses, there are moments when you go into that video game mode. And on that play, it was like, wow, I would throw to Wallace right now. This seems like he could either go, right down the field, or he could cut across the field, but there's a lot of territory. And it was exactly the play, and it was like the Steelers knew it was going to be there, and Ben just sailed it.
Yeah, those are the long foul balls you can't have, especially when when you get behind 21-3, or 21-7 in the game, or whatever you're behind. You can't make mistakes like that. Every play is so critical, and that's an easy throw. He didn't have anybody in his face. He had plenty of time to set his feet. It's a pitch and catch, and it's a little bit like the throw he makes in the Jets game when he was scrambling and they intercept the ball down on the goal line. He's got the receiver wide open if he throws it to the pylon, and the ball sails inside, and he throws it too far inside. And the Jets intercept the pass, and then they start to come back down the field. And I think that play really was symbolic of the last 2 weeks for Big Ben. I mean, it was really an easy throw that he didn't make, and he should have made it.
I don't think he had an awful game, but he did not have a good game, and I would say he had a poor game. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think he had a Big Ben game, especially, the final drive come down the field. There was a lot of confusion in the 2-minute drive. They took a lot of time. After they get the first completion, they took a lot of, the penalty hurt them, but then they come back and they can't get lined up. Mike Wallace doesn't know where he's going to, what route he should run. They look discombobulated in that whole 2-minute drill, which is not typical of what Ben has done most of his career.
Is it fair to say that we owe Mike McCarthy a clock management bad decision apology? Because I thought he was awesome yesterday.
What really saved him yesterday was the fact that he throws the ball 3 times in the red area, first and goal from the 8, and he had 2 completions, which really helped. The clock kept running. So it was like 2 runs, and even though he didn't gain a lot of yards, the clock kept moving, and I think that's really where he got off the hook. I mean, most people would say he should have run the ball there, but I think Mike knows he can't run the ball there, so he was fortunate enough to get 2 completions, albeit they didn't gain much yards. He at least was trying to make the plays in the end zone, and he had an opportunity to Jordy Nelson, if it's just a tad better throw, there's a guy open in the end zone. It would have been a tough catch. But I think Mike did the right thing. I think he deserves at least to understand that he saw the course of the game, and he knew he wasn't going to be able to run the ball. First and goal at the 8. If you run it twice, so what? You're not going to be able to. You're going to be in 3rd and 9 from the 9-yard line. So I think he did the right thing.
I think you could do a whole column on that last drive, because the conventional move there, I think, would have been to run the ball or run a couple like short screens, try to move the clock, and they kept doing what they were doing.
I think that's
their best chance was Rodgers.
That's who the Packers are. The Packers are, they're Aaron Rodgers and they're receivers. They lose Driver, which hurt them. I mean, here's the thing about the Packers, and I wrote about this today, that they're one of the few teams that have won the Super Bowl now that have with half their team. I mean, they've won the Super Bowl without Jermichael Finley. They've won a Super Bowl without Donald Driver. They won it without Charles Woodson. And now when they get back next year, they start to add Ryan Grant wasn't there, at least a legitimate running back. I know James Starks played well down the stretch, and that helped. But, I mean, this was a team that really, the Packers won with their B team. That's what's really remarkable about their Super Bowl win.
And it reminded me a little of the 04 Pats, where the injuries kind of passed the tipping point. They're in the game, and then you're just holding on. Remember the Pats? Yep. Harrison broke his arm, and was that 03 or 04? Whatever the Super Bowl and Harrison broke his arm. But I remember watching that going, oh, my God, can we just hold it? If this game was one more quarter, we're going to lose. And I felt that way when they said Woodson wasn't coming back. And then they're like, yeah, Driver might not come back either. It was like, wow, can they even hold on for another half here?
And that's what Pittsburgh needed. Pittsburgh needed to be able to double Jennings and then be able to hopefully get Jordy Nelson or James Jones to beat him. And Rodgers was so good with the football. I mean, the throw he makes on the seam to Jennings on third down has got to be one of the greatest throws. Tomlin knew it was coming. Everybody knows when Jennings lines up in that, there's a third guy inside in the slot, he's going to get the ball on the seam. Coverage was good, but Rodgers made an incredible throw, and Jennings really proves he's a top-flight receiver. He catches everything, especially the tough catches, which the other two, Jones and Nelson, couldn't make.
The Packers really could have not made the playoffs.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
If Giants-Eagles had gone differently, that crazy Giants-Eagles game, the Deshaun Jackson punt return with no time remaining game, I'm pretty sure that the Packers would not have made it then, right?
Well, obviously the Giants would have been in better shape. Then the next week the Giants went to Green Bay. Green Bay beat them soundly. I don't know how it all would have played out. The Giants ended up 10-6, and so did the Packers. So the Packers won that, so it would have gone the other way. Yeah, if they would have been able to get to 11, it would have knocked out the Packers, which shows you really how close these teams are, even in the seeding. I mean, look at it doesn't matter where you're seated.
Well, that leads me to my question. It seems like you only need to play well starting about December, maybe by Christmas. You need to start peaking. Is this becoming a 6-week league?
Well, I think you have to have a quarterback to be able to do this. So your quarterback has to carry you through the other weeks, but I think your team has to peak, and I think you have to have an identity of who you are as a football team, especially late in the year, where you can play right or left-handed. I mean, the Patriots lose; they couldn't play left-handed. They didn't have an outside receiver. The Jets lose because they didn't have a blue chip rusher. All of a sudden, these things that start to creep up after Christmas, you've got to have an answer for it. The Packers did. And give the Steelers credit. I mean, they played the one area I misjudged. I thought the Packers would be able to get more pressure on Big Ben and create more havoc because the offensive line was so poor for the Steelers. But even without Maurice Pouncey, the Steelers blocked well. They did everything. And really, Ben felt rushed. He played faster. But the reality was that offensive line didn't cost them the opportunity of the Super Bowl. It was the unforced errors that did.
I agree. And, I still remember the end of the third quarter, and it just seemed like, wow, could the Steelers still be in this game potentially? They turned the ball over twice. They bent over through Wallace for that easy touchdown. They're down 4. They're over midfield, and the Steelers are walking, and their bench seemed really locked in. It just felt like they had, really felt like it was going to go their way. And then the Mendenhall fumble happened. I mean, you got to give Matthews credit for that play. Hey, Mendenhall, like Peter King was killing Mendenhall in his column today. What if it was just a great play by Matthews?
I mean, that's a tough way because really the ball was insecure in his pocket. I mean, it was one of those things where the violence of football creates a fumble. It happens to everybody. I mean, the guy got him at the right spot at the right time, and I think Mendenhall has done a great job of not being the fumbler that he was. I mean, there's sometimes he carries the ball loosely. His bicep is so big it's tough to tuck the ball away at times, and that creates the space for the fumbling. But the reality of it is, I don't think that was one of the plays that hurt him. But I think the focus on that. I mean, Big Ben's overthrow is just as bad. I think they should have pinned them back and not kicked the 53-yard duck hook left. I think they should have pinned them back and played field position. To me, that was another turnover. I think there was a lot of areas of the game that the Steelers can look back and say, besides the fumble, they really made some mistakes.
The one thing about the fumble, beyond what you just talked about was, I think at that point the Steelers had the ball for 27 minutes and the Packers for 17. And that was partly because the Packers got an interception touchdown, which always skews the time of possession stats. But I did feel like their defense was wearing down. As you pointed out, the Steelers, other than on the first interception, they blocked for Roethlisberger really well in that game. And it seemed like their defense, the Green Bay defense, was getting tired. And that fumble it saved the Packers from, I think their defense would have folded.
I think so, too, because here's the thing. They lose Woodson. Shields is hurt. He comes back. But what people don't understand is when you play as much man-to-man as Green Bay does, their defensive backs get tired, especially when they're on the field. Receivers that run 9 routes, they come off the field and stand next to the coach because they put their hand up and say, I got to come out. The DB has to go back in the game and keep running. And when you play a lot of man against this passing team, you're going to get tired. And that's what was happening to Green Bay. And I think the fumble bailed them out. So that got them a little bit of momentum. And then really the Steelers at the end of the day couldn't really handle the coverage aspect of the game, which is what we thought would go in. And that's really what cost them the game. They didn't have, look, Troy Polamalu, I mean, he's a great player, but he did not make a play in the playoffs.
No.
I mean, he wasn't a factor in the game, and I think that really hurt them. And their corners are never going to be great cover guys. I think that's the essence of what they took advantage of.
The Simmons theory, I'm naming it after myself.
Okay.
Of Super Bowl champions is that it usually works out that the team that wins the Super Bowl did one thing better than anybody else did their best one thing. Can we say that the Packers threw the ball better than anyone else did anything?
I think they throw it at times better than anybody, but there's always that lapse. There's always that moment where if there wasn't that moment, this game would have been, everybody would have been jumping out and up and down saying that the Packers are an easy team, that they're better than them. But there was always, even including myself, there was that slight hesitation because the Packers get off track at times. You know, they don't always stay on the course. And as hard as it is, what people don't understand how hard it is for Aaron Rodgers, the burden of responsibility is squarely always on his shoulders because he has to execute. You look at his offense, there's not a lot of easy throws he has to make. He makes tough throws. Guys are covered, guys are open, but he makes every throw. There's not a lot of slip screens. They didn't run a screen yesterday at all. I mean, there's no easy, hey, let's just pad my stats numbers. To me, that's what separates Rodgers. He's remarkable that he's able to do it and carry the burden of responsibility as easily as he does.
And I guess you could say the Patriots are built like that, too. The Packers can have those games when you get a couple drops, a couple tip passes at the line, one interception that, tipped in the line of scrimmage, whatever. And the Pats had that game, and the Packers didn't, basically.
Yeah, and the other thing about the Patriots, in their offense, Brady has a lot of throws in the scheme that are really just that are runs that are extended runs. Rodgers doesn't have a lot of those, and that's what makes their offense so tough, and especially as it works itself down the field. And look, Pittsburgh played as best as they could, but the area of weakness that the Steelers had showed up, and then their best player. When your best player isn't dominant in the game, and it was tough, then how are you going to win the game? And, James Harrison had a couple times. I thought Lamar Woodley, clearly the torch has been passed. The best player on the Steelers defense is Lamar Woodley. I don't think anybody could argue that. And I think the torch has been passed. And now, as a Steeler fan, you got to figure out what you have to do to kind of, was it Troy's injury or is he getting older? I mean, those are the tough decisions you have to kind of look through and see where we are.
Quickly, let's cover the 52-yard field goal because it was terrible when it happened. It was terrible as it was happening. As I said to Sal, or the Steeler fan behind me was saying how Sweesham was hitting 61-yarders before the game, and it's like, well, this guy's been waived twice. 80 million people are watching this game, or 100. He's in a stadium of 103 million. This is the biggest kick of his life by far. 0% chance. I honestly would have given that a 0% chance. What was Tomlin thinking on that?
As always, the play before is the one that kills you on a mistake. It's never the mistake that actually happens. I mean, Ben taking the sack there, where they now become 4th and 14, I think it was really one of those where I'm sure the special teams coach came over to Tomlin and said, hey, we can make it. But again, the sack puts him at 4th and 14 as opposed to, 4th and 6. And then I think he has a decision to go for it down there instead of trying to kick the field goal. To me, there was no decision. You punt the ball, you pin them back, you're playing good defense, you play a field position game. And even though they got off the hook on that, they got off the hook because they held them and, they got the ball back again. It just, to me, it didn't control vertical field position, which they needed to do. And I just think ultimately he kind of got, sometimes when you get behind in a game, you get in a rush to score points to kind of catch up. And I think those are the decisions you regret later when you look back at the tape. And you say, man, I should have just been a little bit more patient and a little bit calmer and played field position. There was plenty of time to win this game.
Steelers didn't deserve to win. They didn't do enough.
No, they didn't do enough to win the game. And, what we said all along, the area of weakness for the Steelers creeped up. I mean, when you have a 28-25, great 2-point play, by the way, I mean, those are the kind of things you have to do when you're behind in a game. Great execution, great call. The 28-25, now you have the best defense in the National Football League. You got to go out there and stop people. You got to go out there and stop people and get the ball back and not let them score a field goal and not let them make the change of field position. And I think at the end of the day, that's where the Steelers lost the game. Their defense wasn't able to make the coverage plays they needed to make.
Pats Giants in February 2008 comes down to the last drive.
Yeah.
Steelers Cardinals comes down to the last drive. Last year, Colts Saints didn't come down to the last drive, but really, technically, it kind of did because the Colts were driving for the game-winning score with a few minutes left. Manning throws the pick. This one comes down in the last 2 minutes. Is this more than a coincidence?
I think it's the matchups, and typically what we find at the Super Bowl now is not about a team because you can't sneak through. The matchups have eliminated some teams, and they've shown some weakness. So the games are very even. And I think this game was clearly even because the Packers, even though with all their injuries on paper, were the better team, but the Steelers' toughness, you can never get away from that. I mean, most teams, they get down like the Steelers did, would have folded. They came right back. I mean, the toughness element that Pittsburgh has with their players, with their coaches, they kept fighting. So the game was always going to be close. You never, even as a Packer fan, did you ever feel comfortable when you were up, you were going to win the game? No, I mean, you were going to fold? No, you thought you were going to come back. And that's what I think makes the Super Bowl so good because each team, to get to the Super Bowl, you have to be tough and you don't fold. In the past, when we had those routes, some of those AFC, the Denver teams that were getting killed, really weren't good teams. They were a team with a great quarterback.
Yeah, and I will say one thing about Roethlisberger, who did not have a good game, but when they fell behind, I felt like he could bring them back. And there's how many quarterbacks in the league that you have said that about? I was like, they're not out of this. He's done it before. I think he felt like they weren't out of it. So, at least bad game and all, he's still in that upper echelon, I think.
And the plays that he extends, I mean, really, he makes so many plays in a game that take away from the couple bad throws. I mean, he's going to regret it this offseason, the throws that he made in the game, especially the decisions, more than the throws. The Wallace throw, the interception, really, that's the one. I mean, Heath Miller came over to the sideline and just said, hey, wait a minute. And for the Packers, I mean, they won the game. Really, Clay Matthews, other than the one play, wasn't a dominating force in the game.
Right.
And so if I would have told you that, and you would have gone in the game and said, Big Ben, if Matthews isn't dominating, Big Ben's probably going to have a big day. And Matthews didn't dominate, and Big Ben was just not sharp. I think he needs to go back and wear the glove again. The ball didn't come off his hands as smoothly at times as I've seen it, especially in the playoff game against the Jets when he's wearing the glove in cold weather. I think he might have to go to the Kurt Warner effect and put the glove back on. It seems to come off his hands smoother.
As a Patriot fan, watching that game yesterday and seeing how easy it was to throw against the Steelers, obviously I started thinking about that stupid Jets loss and thinking about how we would have beaten Pittsburgh and New England. Who would have, just hypothetically, just for my sanity, who wins the Green Bay-New England Super Bowl? Please say Green Bay so I don't have to think about it.
I think Green Bay, especially with Aaron Rodgers, would have attacked New England in the same way. Look, New England can't get any rush. Pittsburgh could get rush. And so when you're playing Green, I mean, it would have had to been a game typical of the Rams, the first Patriot win where the Patriots would have had to take a lot of the clock away and reduced it. Now, I've seen Belichick win those games. He did it with the New York Giants with Thurman Thomas. He did it with the Rams. I mean, there was ways that he's been able to manufacture a game plan that does it. But the Rodgers element in the game makes it very difficult, and it would attack. And because the Patriots can't rush the passer, it would have been a tough win for the Patriots. I mean, the Patriots would have much rather play Chicago or even Atlanta or one of those. Green Bay was the wrong matchup for them.
Okay, good. I feel better. So, Super Bowl, and this is, I know there's a lockout hanging over everything we went out of the season and all that stuff. Super Bowl, Green Bay, 6-1 odds. Patriots, 5-1 odds. What do you make of that?
Well, I think the Patriots, I think, first of all, let's talk about the Packers. The Packers, and I wrote about this morning, the disease of me can't even affect the Packers because all the guys that have gotten hurt for the Packers, they've replaced, and so there's nobody in the building that can say, hey, if it wasn't for me, you guys wouldn't win, other than Aaron Rodgers. Right. Because they've proven that they've won. And then they're not going to have any contract disputes. I mean, they got such a young team that they don't have anybody who demands more money. Now they have to sign Cullen Jenkins. whether they sign Darren College or not, I mean, that's a decision they have to make. So to me, the Packers are really in prime position to repeat, if ever was a chance a team could repeat, because they're going to reinforce their team. They're not going to lose their team. So I think that's my commentary on the Packers. That puts them in ideal position, especially as they're going to add some more pieces to their team. And then to me, New England can only get to the Super Bowl next year if they have to get a dominating rusher. They have to find a way to get the guy that can come off the corner and harass the quarterback as this young secondary continues to improve. They don't get that element in their football team, and they don't add another receiver, which I think they will. Then I think that they can't. If they add a receiver and a rusher, they're a lock to get to the Super Bowl. They're just not a Super Bowl pick. They're a lock. But those things have to be made. Those decisions have to come in.
I was at a thing on Saturday that Larry Fitzgerald was at, and I was just staring at him. How great he was going to look at a Patriot. And I almost went up to him, but I hate going up to people and bugging them. But, man, I was just like, man, we get him for the 17th pick and the 60th pick. What number would he wear?
That's going to be an interesting decision for the Arizona Cardinals because, next year, and it depends on what's going to happen in the CBA. Assuming that the CBA gives you a designation of a franchise, and the way Fitzgerald's contract is, and if we get a cap, I mean, they might have to make a decision on him because the cap number could be so high. What do they want to do with him, knowing that next year is going to be his lame duck season if they can't think they can put something on him or allow to franchise him? So I think there's decisions, and typically you make the best deals when you're a year ahead of those decisions than you do trying to nurse them around.
You were around NFL people all week, obviously, last 2 weeks. I mean, what would you rank the odds for the lockout?
I listened to the commissioner's address. I was really encouraged by his ability to say, look, the March 4th or March 3rd date is a real date. If you don't make a deal with us then, you're probably going to make a worse deal than you're going to get. So that's an issue. And then the other factor was they want to negotiate and they want to make a deal. But they want to do it before March 3rd comes day. So now the problem is, look, Bill, DeMaurice Smith is in a tough spot. He just got elected by the players. He's the new guy on the block. He's got to take a worse deal. He's got to have something in his hand that when he goes and tells the players, look, I want to make this deal with the owners, that gives the players a sense he accomplished something. Whether it's not going to 18 games, whether it's getting benefits for the ex-players, because he knows before he even walks into a meeting, he's going to make a worse deal than the one he had. So he's got to find a way to come out of this thing politically correct and make his players think he did something for them. And I think that's the challenge of the next 3 weeks. What will the owners give him where he can stand in front of his players and say, look, I beat him over the head. We're not playing 18 games, and here's the deal we have to live with. And I think that's going to be the issue.
All right, here's my devil's advocate point. The game's never been in better shape. The ratings have never been higher. Interest has never been better. I would say, other than the fact that we don't have an agreement, this is the best situation the league has ever been in. Why does he have to take less money?
I think that's a great point. And obviously the owners felt like when they put that deal together, the players and the owners felt like this was a deal that was kind of loosely put together in kind of a rush. They gave each side an out to get out of the deal because one side might not be happy with the deal. It might be too beneficial for the owners. It might be too beneficial for the players. And once that out got put in there, now everybody has an opportunity to regroup and reevaluate the deal, and that's what the owners did. So obviously without knowing the whole substance issues that they have to talk about, I think the owners are just looking to improve the deal to try to make a better deal for them without taking too much away from the players. And I agree. I mean, you're at the Super Bowl. Do you see the people there that weren't even at the game? I was at the NFL Experience. It was remarkable. All the kids running around in that little place. Football's never been popular. It's going to continue to grow. Wait till we see the ratings for this game.
Listen, all I know is that if Jerry Jones wanted to sell the Cowboys right now, he would get a lot more than they paid for him. Same for Bob Kraft, same for all these guys. It's really hard for me to believe that they need more money back. And then, on top of it, if I'm just looking at it from their side, like what's unfair to me if I'm an NFL owner, really the only thing that's unfair is the stupid rookie salary scale.
Right.
That you have to spend all this guaranteed money on the number 5 pick who's like a left tackle who might not ever make the All-Pro team. Right. That's the only really dumb thing that's against them. So, I don't know. It just seems like this should be able to be figured out.
And I think the owners, and just by the solidarity that they showed at the commissioner's address, I think they obviously want to make a deal. They've extended. I mean, Bob Kraft said we can get this done in a week if we just sit down and talk. To me, that's a very telling issue. They have to find a way to get it done, but they're going to have to find a way to give DeMaurice Smith an out. They're going to have to find a way for him to be able to stand in front of his players and say, hey, I didn't get you 18 games. I beat him over the head for that, and here's our new deal, and here's what we're going to get, and here's why it's better for us to keep going this way. It's going to have to be some gamesmanship on his part and some salesmanship for him to pull off the deal.
I threw this at Sal. 16 games, 2 bye weeks instead of 1, and 14 playoff teams, so we get 2 extra playoff games in the first round. That's not a good compromise?
I think that's a great compromise, and I would even add to make the conference championship games on each day in there, because I think really when you watch the Super Bowl and you see the magnitude of these games, to double them up isn't really fair to the NFL, isn't fair to the ratings. It isn't fair to the fans. I mean, it's
so
not fair.
Your Sunday night, Monday night analogy.
Yeah, because the problem is CBS can't. Their pregame show, if they're after Fox's game, it gets no ratings. Why not give everybody a chance to really get the ratings that they want?
And the Sunday night, Monday night would be 2 monster ratings. And then if you had the 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, then that doesn't really penalize the team that much who had to play on Monday.
You just rotate them every other year. The NFC gets the Sunday game one year, the AFC gets it the next. You just keep rotating it.
What about? I mean, we got to take care of you with this new labor agreement. I want you to make at least $10 million a year. Is that?
I would love that. Yeah. I think we're going to have a lot of time to discuss it. So I'm going to have to get into basketball now because I think, unfortunately, I have to count how many days until the next game. This is the darkest period of our lives without no football.
It's really bad. I mean, there's some bonuses like with Mad Men's coming back. The Sixers had the
Boardwalk Empire. Sixers could make a trade. That would be good. I'm planning on going to a lot of 76er games, so that's about the only thing I have to look forward to.
All right, Mike Lombardi, thanks for all the time over the course of the year. We'll check you out on NFL.com, and if there's no lockout, we would love to have you back to talk about the NFL draft when it approaches.
We will be around. Oh, the draft's going to be here, so we'll plan on doing that for sure.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Bye-bye.
All right, last but not least, Vegas. Chad Millman. He wasn't there this time, but he's our Vegas guy. He writes for ESPN the magazine, ESPN.com. And he tweeted last night that Packers and the over was a worst-case scenario for the bookies in this game. Explain yourself.
Well, it just seems like a lot of money was coming in on the Packers at the end, and I think a lot of sharp money initially was on the Packers in the beginning. And the over, you're always going to get burned in the Super Bowl because that's where the majority of the squares are going to bet. And so the flood of people who eventually made it to Las Vegas to bet after a week of horrible weather and the casinos being relatively quiet, they made it out for the weekend, and they significantly bet the over. And I think a lot of late money started coming in on the Packers because even earlier in the day, all the reports I was getting was that people were pretty evenly split between Packers and Steelers. But as the day went on, as the game got closer, it seemed to be there was a lot more money on the Packers to cover, and then people, if they were betting on the Steelers, they were betting the Steelers' money line. So between the over and the Packers covering, it's just sort of a nightmare scenario. But you got to keep in mind also, there were some sort of extenuating props that covered. You know, there was a 2-point conversion that pays out at a higher number. Those rarely happen. And there was a defensive touchdown, and that rarely happened. So what you're getting is the props that guys normally make their money back on, even those were covering, so you were paying out a lot more in addition to sort of the over and the favorite covering.
Well, thank God the overtime plus 650 prop didn't cover.
I know, but there was a moment there when it was 28-25 where I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is going to be the year that there's overtime.
Yes, and somehow it always seems to fall apart at the end. You know, it seemed to me by this weekend, after having thought about this game forever and ever, I picked the Packers to win, but the two most obvious bets to me, which of course neither which I made because we were so locked into that Steelers Super Bowl bet we couldn't really hedge it. But
right.
Packers in the over parlay, and then Packers in the over tease. Tease the over down to 39.5, tease the Packers to +3. Those just seem like the no-brainer bets.
Yeah, well, especially the tease. And somebody emailed me about doing just that during the course of the week, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. You know, I've completely come around on the teases, but yeah, you know, I was on the side of the Packers the whole time too. I think we talked about it either last week or the week before. This team was just better And they were a better team throughout the year. And I think most people that I know were thinking that as well. And the over I wouldn't have been on. I wouldn't have parlayed it, and I probably wouldn't have teased it unless I could have gotten it down to 39. But definitely, and Packers over parlay isn't something I would have done. So I was not thinking the same as you.
Well, my thinking with the over was that the Packers were not going to be able to run the ball against Pittsburgh. It just wasn't going to happen. So they're going to have to throw the ball to win. So if you're thinking, I like Green Bay to win because they can throw the ball and they can only throw the ball to win, then that should translate to points logically.
Right, but I actually
work out that way. But
I didn't think that the Steelers would be able to score as much as they did because the Packers defense is not that much worse than the Steelers defense. I mean, you're talking about, the second ranked defense in the NFL as far as points allowed, and I just didn't think they'd be able to score as much. So I thought the Packers would win, and I thought they'd cover, but I didn't think it'd be that high scoring because I figured the Packers would limit what the Steelers could do offensively.
What, any other crazy props cover yesterday? The 2-point is what is the 2-point payoff? Just out of curiosity.
I don't even know. It's probably between 7 and 10. I don't think any of these go that much higher than 10. And 2 points. I think there was a 2-pointer last year too, but it hasn't been the kind of thing that's paying off for years and years. So I'd have to, maybe I can find out while we're talking here. But the big news has been that Christina Aguilera prop that a lot of the different books had. So I know that Bodog had it, timed it out at 153.2. So they actually are paying out that prop for whoever got whichever side they had. But Sportsbook, the guy emailed me this morning, they're paying off both sides, he said, because they couldn't get exactly the timing right. And I think they were at 154. And so that they might have been, sort of between that 153 and 154 range. And because they're not able to time it exactly and there's controversy about the lyrics, they're paying both sides of it. Wow. Yeah.
See, I have to. I'm ashamed to admit I had my stopwatch on my BlackBerry out and I timed it, and I had it at it was like 153 and 0.2 of a second.
Well, that's what Bodog timed it out at.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty clear. I don't know how anybody.
I don't know why they're doing it unless they just feel like there's too much of a controversy. I emailed the guy. I'm like, why is it too hard to judge the final time? And he said precisely. So what was your line on Christina and the anthem and your closing line? And they opened at 154, and the over was minus 140, and the under was even money, and they closed at 154 over minus 225 and under plus 165. And they said they're paying both.
The Brave thing paid off though. So over 6 seconds for the Brave. She just denied.
Yeah, I think she went 10.5 seconds.
Yeah. What about when did the Gatorade dump happen?
It happened. I saw a replay of it, and it was orange. But I didn't see it when it happened live. But someone else emailed me this morning, like I didn't see it happen. I don't know what color it was. There's a count. This is amazing. How amazing these props. There's a count if you didn't see it, and Fox played the replay of it. And while it was happening, I was thinking, are they playing the replay because it didn't happen live, and so many people have a bet on whether or not what color the Gatorade is?
That's funny.
Yeah.
So what color was it?
It was orange.
Ooh. My friend Daniel Callison thought it was going to be blue because it was in Cowboy Stadium, and blue is 12-1, and he went in on that.
Well,
but it was smart. He might have overthought that one.
I think he did overthink it a little bit. Although I'm sure people research throughout the year. If we could find a picture of what color Gatorade the Packers were using, and they try to figure that out. The other one was what the heck? Oh, the Brett Favre. Will Brett Favre be mentioned? I don't believe he was mentioned kickoff to whistle.
Wow. Shocker.
Yeah.
And that Jordy Nelson paid off big, which I was excited about because I think it was either you or it was me and Sal talked about that, about the receiver odds for that first touchdown for the Packers.
Yeah.
Like Jordy Nelson was 20-1 or something. Jennings was 15-1. We were saying that would be a good one.
Seemed to be that was a good pick, and he was. I got to tell you, he had some kind of game.
Yeah, even with a couple drops.
But I mean, it was one of those classic. I think we talked a little bit about this too. Like, who's that receiver that's going to come out of nowhere that is going to get all the catches? but you and I, we didn't talk about him at all. We talked more about the Steelers guys. We didn't talk about him at all.
I think we talked about
Heath Miller.
We talked about Heath Miller, and I think we talked about maybe James Jones.
Maybe we talked about James Jones, too, and he had a shot at it.
Yeah, he did have a shot at it. So what are the odds for a lockout in 2011?
I think they're very high. I haven't seen lockout numbers yet. Did you notice, by the way, at the end, Kurt Menefee sort of winking a nod like, we hope to see you next season.
Well, I was at the game, so I didn't see it.
Yeah, you're so big time. I'm watching on my couch, watching the broadcast, seeing the confetti fly. Was it amazing at the game?
I left right before the last kneel down. I can't handle it watching other teams win the Super Bowl.
Still hurts.
It's really tough. It's really tough for me emotionally.
No, I feel for you. But you had so much to cheer for this year. And look at Tom Brady. He won that, unanimous whatever it was.
Tom Brady's unanimous MVP award really numbed the pain of the loss.
That's never happened before.
No.
Also, you know what else I was paying attention to? That prop about will either team kick a field goal that is longer than 33 yards. Do you notice how it didn't happen last night? I think it was 33 yards was the one that the Steelers hit. Then he missed a 52-yarder, and then I think the Packers hit like a 23-yarder.
So, who now the season's over, who's the sharp of the year in your opinion? Who did the best? Who nailed the Super Bowl game the best?
Well, in the playoffs, we've talked about Paul Bessier from Prediction Machine before, and in the playoffs, he legitimately went 11-0.
It's incredible
on his sides. Now, I'm skeptical not because of his math or anything else, but I haven't been keeping track of his totals or anything else, and so before I sort of give a ringing endorsement and say, hey, this guy is the guy. It's impressive to go 11-0, but he gives just as much weight to his totals and all his other bets. So I'd have to go back and do the research on did he, do as well in his totals and anything else that he was sort of pimping on his site as sort of the Prediction Machine logic. And so I'd have to check that. But going 11-0, and that I know he did because I sort of tracked it and know guys who were working with him. So that's pretty impressive. Teddy Covers from the day the playoffs started said he thought the Packers were the best team, and he was on them for the playoffs. So that was impressive to me. This guy, Jeff Kulesa from Wonder Dog Sports, was a guy I've mentioned before. He had a phenomenal year. He was right on for the playoffs. He had a great logic for the Super Bowl, and he actually won that as well. He was on the Packers side. So those are at least those three guys, when the playoffs came around, I was definitely paying attention to.
Interesting. So Teddy Covers, another big year for him.
I don't know how he did all year. I didn't keep track enough to see how he did all year because I talked to so many other guys, and I'm just not tracking what Teddy's doing on a weekly basis. But for the playoffs, he was great. Totally great.
So that somebody had that article about how the sports books did the last 10 years, and the only game they lost money on was Pats Giants. Yeah,
they're not saying that this year.
They didn't lose money this year.
Oh, no, that's going to be they won't be saying that anymore.
Oh, they lost money then, definitely.
All the guys I've spoken to have said they've lost money, or they're barely breaking even with a couple of different spots, but, I think they just feel like they got crushed.
Oof.
Yeah.
Not a good way to head into the lockout for our friends in Vegas.
No, not at all. And let me just tell you right now, literally this second while we're on the phone, I got an email from Lucky's in Las Vegas sending me the 2012 updated Super Bowl odds.
And you have Pats at 5-1 and Packers at 6-1, right?
Pats at 7-1, Packers at 8-1.
Pats at 7-1?
Yep.
That's pretty enticing.
Steelers at 10-1, Ravens at 12-1, Chargers at 12-1.
Pats at 7-1 with 4 picks in the top 60.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Football.
And this is the year they're supposed to be good. They weren't even supposed to be good last year.
You throw in a football season, and that's a good bet.
Yeah.
You throw in a 16-game schedule to playoffs, and you might want to do it. All right, Chad Millman, so you're into college basketball now. Now you're going to throw yourself into it. I'm
so ready for college basketball. I'm loving it. I'm loving Duquesne right now.
Who's your ace college basketball guy?
Well, Alan Boston, who, from my book The Odds, is always my guy, although he, people have such different opinions about him because he's such an old school guy. He just sort of, he's very karmic and astrological, and like tries to sort of infuse himself with all of these teams from having studied them for the past 30 years. So I love talking to Al, and I love talking to Sal from Maddox Sports because he does a lot of sort of statistical stuff, and he measures these teams with his spreadsheets. And last year he was my Wise Guy bracket winner. He sort of had the best picks throughout the bracket. So those are my two big guys for college hoops. Oh, and Edward Golden, Right Angle Sports, who is also really, really good with small college teams and with totals. All right. Isn't it amazing these guys specialize in this stuff?
Well, college basketball especially, there's no bigger crapshoot, and especially now when a lot of these guys are 1 year and out or 2 year and out. I mean, it just seems so random to me. I can't put it. But on the other hand, there's so many schools that apparently if you study it the hardest, that's the sport you have the biggest advantage.
Oh, that's by far the biggest opportunity. I know more guys in Vegas who make money betting on college basketball than anything else because they can, make a lot more money and take advantage of loopholes in the line. You should get into it. That's your chance. Forget soccer.
I'm glad we were able to have a lively discussion about gambling on the worldwide leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Chad Millman, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.